there's a ton of different networking opportunities. And it's like, where do I even start? What does this even look like? And so we often are asking, how do I successfully network at these business events? How do I make this happen? And we want to explore that in today's conversation. So we actually have 5 little topics that we're going to cover: why networking is important, how to do networking, how to network at a business event, the best business referral network, and last, though not least, is how to grow your business by referral. I've got my little cheat sheet here to make sure we cover it all. And I'm actually pulling almost all of this out of the 4.5 networking mistakes. So the 4.5 networking mistakes is my first book, where we take a look at all the things the experts tell you to do at networking, that there's actually a better way to do it, as well as there's 19 networking nuggets, what goes on before, during, after a networking event to make it successful, plus how do you deal with networking nerves. Now, in the time frame that we have here, there's no way we can get through the entire book. I mean, it's 130 pages, so it would take us a couple hours to get through it all. But my goal is to give us a couple of tips on how to be better at our networking. And so if we start off and we think about why networking is important, and if you want to drop in the chat box why you think networking is important, I'd love to hear from you, your thoughts on why networking is important. I know I started going networking. Somebody called me and was like, "Hey, Tiffanie, you want to come to this networking event?" And I'm like, "Okay, let me go check it out." I had never done networking before. Prior to my very first networking event in 2005, I was spending 80% of my time cold calling. And I'm good at it, though I did not like doing it. And so this networking was like an opportunity to be in front of all of these people. Though it's interesting, what I found is what a lot of people have happened. So I would be like, okay, I'm going to this networking event, super excited. My goal tonight is I want to get 2 orders. So this is back in the day when I was doing my promotional products company. So I would offer promotional products and hope that people wanted to purchase. And I was pretty good even at the networking events. I'd sometimes, walk out with an order or 2. But a lot of times it's like, okay, my goal is 2 orders and I only got 1 order. And I was like, oh, this didn't work as well as I wanted it to. But here's the problem that I learned. While many people go to a networking event with the intention to, hey, I hope somebody will buy my product or service, who can I sell to? Very few people go to a networking event with their checkbook or their credit card ready to buy things. And so we call that the networking disconnect. There's a disconnect of, okay, here's what I'm looking to do, and here's what the people are at the event. And so I like to think about switching that now that I know better. And it seems like y'all know better too. Roseanne shared networking form relationships. Wendy, create relationships. Yes, I think that is 100% right. To me, when I go to a networking event, it's I want to build that know, like, and trust. And while I can't typically do all of that at a single networking event, I can definitely begin to build that know and the like, perhaps. Now, my goal is often when I go to networking events, how can I book a meeting from the meeting? So back in the day, I'd actually take my calendar. Nowadays, we have these smart devices. It makes it super easy to pull up your calendar right then and say, okay, when can we get together? And I think that if we can take the time to book that meeting from the meeting, then life is going to be so much easier, because after the event, we don't have to get into this email, text, phone, whatever way we're communicating conversation of, oh, let's see what's going on. And, oh, how do we make this happen? So I think it's just much better in the way that we're able to create those connections. Let's go ahead and book the meeting from a meeting. Now, I mentioned earlier, I used to go to the event with like a goal of let me sell to 2 people. And we don't do that anymore. But I do think it's important to set a goal. So when I think of this idea of how to do networking, networking nugget number 3 talks about that you want to set a goal when you go to a networking event. And I think it's important for us to think about, okay, what types of goals could we be creating? Some of the goals could be, okay, how many prospects do I want to meet? How many referral sources do I want to meet? For those of you that are here with us live, if you want to put into the chat box, what kind of goals do you set? And if you have generic, that's fine. If you have specific ones, that's great too. When I go to a networking event, sometimes it's how many people do I want to reconnect with? And sometimes, this doesn't always happen, but sometimes you can actually get the guest list prior to the event. So I know Wendy's here with us. Wendy is a member of the Working Women of Tampa Bay, which I am as well. And I love it because I can go and see who's going to be at the event. So I could even have a goal of, I want to connect with this person or meet this person or schedule a one-to-one with this person, a referral partner meeting where we can get to know each other better. I think there's huge opportunities for us when we create those goals. Now, one of the reasons I love going to networking events is, can I find referrals for other people in my network? Because if I can find referrals for other people in my network, then I consider that a win. Because part of my goal when networking and growing my business by referral is motivating my referral sources with referrals. So I actually have a video going up this week on YouTube that talks about knowing your giving number. So how many referrals do I need to give this week in order to get the referrals that I'm looking for? And so you may want to check that up. It'll go up at the end of this week, I do believe, on, figuring out exactly how many referrals you need to give to get what you're looking for. So we come up with these goals, and oftentimes as I'm creating my goals, I'm looking at my calendar and I'm saying, okay, how many appointments do I have to meet with prospects? How many appointments do I have to meet with referral sources? And I'm taking a look and setting my goal based on what I have in the calendar. Wendy, you want to share one type of goal that you sometimes will do when you go to a networking event?
It's funny because I actually do what you said. If I know who's going to be at a Working Women event, I'll go, oh, well, that's somebody I'd like to connect with or I'd like to meet. So I kind of make a point of talking to that person. So
love it.
I'm glad I'm doing it right.
Yeah, sometimes I'll even actually go to the event and I'll say, okay, who's registered? Who do I know that I need to see again? Who don't I know that I need to connect with? And I love the fact that you're able to find that, because not all networking events give you that opportunity.
That's right.
All right, cool. Thank you for sharing, Wendy.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we've talked a little bit about how to do networking. Now I want to talk about how to network at business events. And again, this is kind of the Cliff Notes version. We've got the 4.5 networking mistakes where there's 19 networking nuggets. And I could go through all 19 networking nuggets, but the goal is for us to be here from kind of 10 to 10:30, not much longer than that. And so I don't want to overstep where we're at. So how to network at business events. So networking nugget number 9 is offer support. So when I'm talking to somebody, I'm listening. This is kind of like the mix and mingle, or if I'm having a one-on-one or small group conversation, I'm listening for people to share things that they've got going on in their world. So it could be struggles or challenges. It could be, something that they have coming up. I'm actively listening, because this goes back to my idea of, oftentimes I'm going to networking events to help generate referrals for the people in my network. And so if I hear somebody complaining of, oh my gosh, my taxes are due and my accountant won't call me back, ding, potential referral. If I'm talking to somebody like, oh, I've been trying to get, more from my social media and I'm spending a ton of money on ads and getting no results, ding, potential referral. And so I'm listening to offer support whenever possible. And so what other kind, in addition to offering the support of referrals, what other kind of support could you offer to people? Put that in the chat box below. And I'll share a couple more of the ways that I sometimes will offer support. If they're talking about networking, I always love inviting people to new events, whether that's in person or online. There's a ton of Facebook groups out there, a couple that I'm very active in, that if I hear somebody say something, for example, I'm part of the Video Rockstar. So if they're talking about wanting to do more videos, I can send them there. If they're talking about they want more referrals, I might say, hey, I actually have a group that's focused on how to make more money, more time, more fun through referrals. You want to come join it. Sometimes as people are sharing, I'm thinking about, have I read an article? Have I seen a video? Now, this could be an article that I wrote or a video that I did, or it could be somebody else in my network that I'm like, okay, let me share, this other person. Or it could just be, hey, I read this great book. I don't even know the author. Let me share what they have going on. And so I like to, number 9, networking nugget, offer support whenever possible. And I do kind of sometimes we'll pull into networking nugget number 10 to make this happen. And that's listen and ask ask questions. I like to say 5W plus H. So who, what, where, when, why, and how. Poor how. How is the only one that's kind of left out there on its own. They could have made it a W, right? But anyway, So when I'm at a networking event, I like to ask questions. So do me a favor, for those of you watching, in the chat box below, put in what are some questions you wish people would ask you when networking, and I'll share in a couple minutes how do we make that happen. So we take a look at this. We want to listen and ask questions. And so what I find is most people love to talk about themselves. And so if you can kind of lead the conversation by asking specific questions, it gives us the opportunity to let them feel in control of the conversation, even though we're the ones asking questions. And so I often will ask questions that are in support of networking nugget number 9, offering support. So what are your challenges? What's been going on lately? Now, here's the other thing when it comes to asking questions. I love the idea of asking questions that I also want them to ask me in return. So this whole ideal of mirroring, if I ask you a question, there is a likelihood that you're not going to ask me in return. Now, here's the thing. You will be at some networking events and talking to some people, and you ask them a question and they answer and they're ready for your next question. And you ask them a question and they don't ask you any question back. For whatever reason, whether they're having a bad day or they're really self-centered or they just know what you do or don't care what you do, to me, if the person's not asking me questions back, it lets me know they're not interested in a two-way conversation or relationship. So I'm probably going to try and exit the conversation gracefully, which is networking nugget number 14. We're not going to talk about that one today, but I do want to at least throw it out there. We want to exit the conversation gracefully, even if it's something as simple as, Susie, it was really nice to meet you. I know you have people that you're looking to meet here at the event. I don't want to take up more of your time. I hope to get to see you again. Now, if they're asking you questions back, that's great. So Wendy shared some of the questions she likes to answer is, what do you love most about what you do? And how did you get started in this business? And so to me, that I'm going to ask that question to them first. So why do you love what you do? Hopefully they'll give me their response, and then hopefully they'll ask you in return. And so we can kind of almost go into this networking event, not only with a goal, but what questions would I like people to ask me? Do you have any specials in your business? Do you have anything coming up recently? What's a really amazing success story that you helped create for a client? Roseanne shares, I'm a cruise planner. I'd like them to ask if I sell all types of travel. They assume I only sell cruises. So what we would probably want to do is say, what's one thing in your business, or what's an area in your business that most people don't know that you do? Because we have to, we can't say, did you know I plan cruises in this aspect of it? And so if we can think of a question of, what's an area of your business that you love to do that most people don't think naturally of when it comes to your industry. I know a financial planner that really loves selling wedding planning insurance. It was a super inexpensive policy, but it was really great for him to be able to meet those young couples and begin to create the relationship. So he really heavily focused on that. But most financial planners don't think about, most people when thinking about financial planners aren't thinking about travel insurance. See, now I'm thinking, Roseanne, you got me thinking travel. So most financial planners, when people are thinking about them, they're not thinking about wedding insurance. And I know with cruise planners, it can be hard because they think, oh, you only do cruises. And Roseanne gave me a great, yeah, love it. Yeah, LOL. That's the joy of doing these things live, is they're not perfect. It's funny, sometimes somebody was like, oh, Tiffanie, why don't you edit out all the mistakes when you put your videos up? Because I'm like, I'm not perfect in person. And if people expect me to be, that ain't happening. So Deb shares, I'm a photographer, but I don't want people to assume I do all types of photography. So I often have to specify that up front. Yeah. And so Deb, if I'm having the conversation and they know I'm a photographer, I might say, what's your specialty or your niche or your area of expertise? What is that? Or maybe what is the one area that you really focus the most on? Because yeah, it's really easy for people to be like, oh yeah, you do everything, right? Like people come to me frequently and they're like, hey, Tiffanie, you're a speaker. Can you speak on leadership? I'm like, no. They're like, but you're a leader. I'm like, yeah, but it's not my topic. They're like, oh, come on. Or let's do a motivational program. I'm like, no, I do try to be entertaining, but I'm also like, let's get some stuff done. Like I want to give content. And so, yeah, if you want to maybe ask a question along the lines of, okay, what is your area of expertise? Or, what you could also ask, what is something that people think you do that you don't? Because yeah, I know with photography, it's such a wide range of things, but really you don't want to do it all. Okay. So it sounds like we've got some really great questions that we can ask. So maybe before we go to the networking event, if we have that mix and mingle opportunity, we are thinking, what questions do I want people to ask me? And so it could be, hey, whatever yours may be. So I love, thank you, ladies. I love the ideas that you're sharing in the chat box with us. Yeah, it does help to be more specific. Like, let's give them, here's what we do. All right. When we go to a networking event, also, something to keep in mind is, what are we going to say? And I find that there's kind of 3 different types of networking events that we can go to where we get the opportunity to talk. So one is when we have that mix and mingle. And when we do that, I recommend using your funneling conversation. That's another video that's going up on YouTube this week. It's Thursday or Friday for the what's your giving plan and the funneling conversation. So you can check those 2 out later on this week on YouTube. The second way that we can do the kind of conversation at networking events is speed networking. This is where you typically have 1 to 3 minutes where you get to share, hey, here's what I do. And then the third thing that you can do is if you have the opportunity to stand up and do a commercial. And that could be 30, 45, 60, 90 seconds, depending on the group. Everybody gets to go around. And so for today's conversation, I just wanted to tackle one of the 3 topics. And I wanted to take a look at this idea of speed networking. So when I'm doing speed networking, and this can be in person or this can be online, what I typically find in person is it's usually you one-on-one or in a small group of people, like a table. Online, it's again, one person or a small group of people. And so I recommend when you do your speed networking, where you're giving your spiel, that you pick one of 3 topics. Now, if you happen to have 3 minutes, you might be able to get through all 3. But if it's just a minute or 2, pick 1 or 2 of the topics. So the first thing that you can share is your why. We call this your emotionally charged connection. This is what inspires you. This is why you do what you do. This is really what drives you. And I think that it's really powerful for us to have this conversation because it gives people an idea of what makes you different, what sets you apart. Now, this isn't necessarily the how you got into your profession. It's much more about the what you do inside your profession. And again, we're here for about 30 minutes for today's conversation, and it's a much bigger conversation to get into the how you find your why. We talk about it quite extensively in Incentives Ignite Your Business program, but I wanted to at least hit that one. And yeah, of course, I've got a video on YouTube for that. Second thing that I mentioned, or second thing that you can do is share the benefits that your product or service offers. I think a lot of times, well, whoever came up with features and benefits got it backwards, because it should be benefits, then features, if even necessary. Because here's the thing, a lot of times people don't need to know about the features of your business, or you need to at least reel them in and get them excited about the benefits so that they want to learn the features. Because I mentioned to you just now, Incentives Ignite Your Business program. If I started the conversation with, it's a 10-module program, 2.5 hours, delivered weekly over Zoom or 3 days in person. And the topics are finding your starting point for referral success, attracting clients with ease, inspiring yourself and your network, branding for trust. I mean, it's like super boring. But if instead I said, hey, typically graduates of the Ignite Your Business program make 10 to 50 grand more in referrals within their first year. They're able to save time by getting the right referrals partners that pass them a steady flow of referrals. And I can go on, but to me, it's much more interesting. And we want to know the what's in it for me prior to getting into the features. I remember years ago, I was looking at buying an air conditioning unit, and like the guys came out and that were like talking to me about it. And they're like, Sears 13 and Sears 15. I'm like, do I really have to go to Sears to buy the unit? Can you not just sell it to me? Well, turned out Sears is a cooling efficiency unit. All they had to do was say, do you want the one that's a little more eco-friendly, or do you want the one that's more cold? Or it wasn't about like the Sears 13. Again, I thought they wanted me to go to Sears. Then it's Sears, SIERES or S. It's a cooling unit, something totally different. I just did not realize that. So you can share the benefits. The third thing you could share is testimonials, success stories. I think that success stories should be one of the things that you teach your referral sources, should be the things that you teach and share with your prospects. I think success stories are highly, highly, highly underutilized. I think a lot of times people are like, let me tell you about the product, but really I want you to tell me about how the product's been used. Let me tell you about my service. Let me tell you about how my service has been used. I think it makes a huge difference in our world when we can do those success stories. Now, they can't just be fluff success stories. You know, Susie Q used me and it was great. No, ideally, the formula that I use for testimonials is where were you before the product or service that was used, and then where are you now? And I mean, Geico has done a really amazing job at making this happen because they use it all the time. So for me, I could say, let me tell you about my client. So she has a mental therapy practice. And prior to working with me, you know, the business was running in the red. She was having a hard time getting people in. She was doing all the work herself. Within a month of completing the Ignite Your Business program, she's in the black. She's hired somebody to clean her office for her. She's hired a marketing assistant. Her patient roster is almost full, and she's getting the paying clients that she loves working with. And now if I'm in speed networking, I've got a little bit more time to go into some details and I can figure out what to say best. Plus, what I find is if I'm in a room and I'm speed networking one-on-one, I can, you know, if I happen to be talking to somebody in the trades, I've got a story that I'm going to use. If I'm talking to somebody in insurance, I've got a different success story I'm going to use. I remember I was doing a speed networking event and the gal sells Pampered Chef, and I had just finished working with a gal that sells Pampered Chef. So I used her success story. So you've got your success stories. And so sometimes you can even kind of be sly about how you're using them to share. Again, I think success stories are super powerful. This is one question that, you know, as we're networking and asking people, I think is a great way for us to be like, okay, what's a client that you recently helped? Because then you get to share it. So for those of you that aren't driving, thanks for not typing when you're driving. As you're listening to this, if you had to pick your story, your emotionally charged connection, your benefits, or your success story, which one do you think you would try out next in your speed networking commercial? And again, so as I mentioned a couple of minutes ago, there are different ways that we can talk. So we didn't really get into the commercial. We didn't really get into the funneling conversations. We actually are going to be doing a masterclass on networking on August 5th and August later in the month. So we do have those coming up. All right, so we've got the masterclass coming up later in the month. I'll share the link with y'all a little bit later for that, where we get into all three. We take some time to actually write them and share them. Wendy shared she likes using stories. That's awesome, Wendy. Love it, love it. So the last networking nugget that I want to talk about from the book is networking nugget number 18, and that's follow up. And to me, you want to follow up, follow up, follow up. If we don't follow up, what was the purpose or the intention of going to the networking event? Why were we even there? Yeah. Now, I often get asked, what's the best way to follow up? And I have 3 ways to answer that question. Number 1, whichever you'll actually do. Number 2 is send that handwritten note, because very few people do that. It's very impactful. And then our third option is use the platinum rule. So the platinum rule, so the golden rule says treat other people the way that you want to be treated. But the problem with that is most people don't want to be treated the way that you want to be treated. They want to be treated the way that they want to be treated. So utilize the platinum rule, treat them the way that they want to be treated. So one of the questions might be, would you prefer I follow up with you on phone or text or email? Ask them and then follow up the way that they prefer to be followed up with. I know my preferred method of follow up is email. What's your preferred method of being followed up with? Roseanne shares travel is easy to talk about as far as being passionate about doing. Yeah, definitely. It's like, let's go travel, especially now that we're traveling Again, that's awesome. So yeah, we want to make sure that we're following up. So we've talked a little bit about how to network successfully. I often get asked, what is the best business referral network? And best and favorite to me are such hard things to categorize so frequently. In Incentives Ignite Your Business, and during the masterclass, we actually talk about the fact that there's 7 different types of referral networks. So we've got, Chamber of Commerce type groups. We've got BNI type groups. We've got the Rotaries, the Kiwanis, Lion, Tigers, and Bears. You have professional associations. You've got social groups. I actually did an interview with Phil Bedford for this week's Networking at Noon. It's Thursday at noon. And he talks about how his salsa group is actually his best referral group. You also have women and gender organizations. I'm sorry, gender and ethnic organizations, like we were talking a little bit earlier with Wendy about the Working Women of Tampa Bay. And then you've got online groups. And 2 years ago, I've been like, online groups are kind of just bonus. But nowadays, I think online groups can be super powerful in what we're able to create from them. So you've got 7 different type of groups. I think it depends on who you are and what you do. Phil, his salsa group is his best. BNI has always been amazing for me in getting referrals. For my husband, he was able to penetrate the Chamber of Commerce, and we had 24% of the members of the Chamber as clients back in our promotional products day. So what's best? That's up to you. It definitely varies. And then the last thing that I wanted to at least touch on is how to grow your referral business. And for our conversation today, because we are coming up to kind of the halfway point, I wanted to give you the content and then we can chat about it. I do have online MORE Referrals, 5 steps to referral success. I'll share the link with you after the event or put it in the description below for y'all watching the video. It is free, 5 weeks on how to really generate referrals for your business. It's about finding out who are the right people that sell to your ideal clients. How do we educate and motivate them so that they want to pass us referrals? And so it goes through all of those steps in a little bit more time. So hopefully now you know more on how to successfully network at business events. You've got an idea, even if it's just a question. Well, actually, let me ask you. So I like to know, what are your eTiffanies, your aha moments? So if you want to put in the chat box, like, what is your aha? Like, ooh, yeah, I'm going to use that.